Welcome back to Sawbones Barbecue. We're doing an extra video today, which is cleaning the smoker. We just finished a brisket cook over 10 hours, so the smoker is nice and grimy, and this seemed like a good time to do a video. People that have watched my videos have said one of two things. They've either said, wow, you must be new at this because your smoker is brand new. And then I've had other people say, how the hell do you keep that thing so clean? This smoker is not brand new. This one's about 2.5 years old and it gets used pretty frequently. So the way I keep it that clean is I clean it a lot. How much you do or don't clean your smoker is very much a personal thing. So this is, one man's opinion. I thought of this when I was at a rifle course this summer doing long range shooting in Wyoming. The instructor, who's become a friend of mine over the years, a fellow named JP, he always says, never tell anybody how to clean their gun or how to raise their kids. Because people are very particular about it and people have their own ideas about things, and that's okay. So he would give that caveat, and then as soon as he was done with that huge caveat, he would show you his way of cleaning a rifle, which is a pretty good way. I do it almost exactly like he does. So in the spirit of JP, I'm saying, I'm not gonna tell anybody how to clean your grill. It's a personal choice. Do or don't do whatever you think is right. But this is one man's opinion. This is how I do it, and it works pretty well for me. So if anyone finds this excessive and neurotic, that's fine, you're entitled to your opinion, but this is how I like to do it. I like to keep it nice and clean. Equipment you need is pretty basic. You need some nice gloves because you're gonna get grungy. I just ordered some heavy duty dish gloves off Amazon, nothing to it. I get 3 packs of them because they occasionally will get holes in them. Shop vac is a must have to get ash out of there. I suppose you could do it with a little mini broom and dustpan, but that would be very painstaking and laborious. So a shop vac is the best investment you can make in keeping your smoker clean. Heavy duty shop towels. I go with the Scott brand original shop towel. You can get these at Costco in big like 8 or 12 packs. I always keep a stock of those on hand. Must have good shop towels. And then you need a nice non-toxic cleaning spray. A quick word about that. When I was new at this, I thought I wanted to get something that was branded specifically toward grill cleaning or was said to be heavy duty or whatever. So I foolishly bought Goo Gone before I knew what I was getting into. And I tried this once, citrus power, fast acting, grease cutting. It sounds good, right? But after I was done, I noticed that the residual smell and residue left on the grates was really significant. And I did some reading about this and then did what I should have done in the first place, which is read the directions. Diethylene glycol monobutyl ether and polyoxyethylene monoundecyl ether. So I've heard enough, I made a terrible mistake buying this and I'm gonna put it in the trash, which is where it belongs. Actually, the only reason I saved that was for purposes of making this video one day. So don't buy Goo Gone or any weird products like that. You need a non-toxic, simple spray. You can make your own with vinegar and lemon juice or whatever if you like. Traeger makes an all-natural cleaner that you can get at the hardware store. This is way overpriced. They sell it for like 15 bucks a thing, which is a complete ripoff because there's not much in it other than water. But for convenience sake, if you don't feel like making your own, this is definitely a safe and effective product. So although I think it's overpriced, I use this a fair bit. So that's pretty much it, other than some brushes for grates. You want to get a nylon one. Nylon's your friend to avoid getting bristles on things. When you're doing a heavy duty clean, I do use wire bristle ones. Although word to the wise, the bristles can come off of these, and if they get into your food and into your system, that can cause big problems. And every year there are a few hundred cases of someone needing surgery because they ingested a grill bristle. So when you use these wire ones, do be careful and make sure the grates are thoroughly rinsed after you're done. As far as the cleaning process goes, we've just finished a cook and the smoker's been allowed to cool down for about an hour or so. So these grates are now cool enough that I could touch them and clean them. Before anything, right when the cook is done and when the grill is still relatively hot, I'll take the nylon brush and just give it a few nice vigorous back and forth just to get the gross crud off. It comes off pretty well when it's hot. I've already done that in this case, so I'm not gonna waste time showing more. But that gets maybe half the gunk off right there, and then makes less of a mess when you're kind of transporting them. So these grates have been cooled off and just scraped once, and they're a little bit grimy. So all I do is take them into the house, I put them in the kitchen sink, I scrub them with hot water and with a wire brush and do 1 round of that. And then after I'm done kind of decrudding them with the wire brush, I go over them again with a sponge and just some Dawn dish soap just to wipe the crud and grease off and make sure I don't leave any bristles behind. I'm not going to show that in the video because that's kind of a time-consuming, 20 minutes at the kitchen sink kind of process. But the finished product ends up looking like this. So you can still see it's kind of brown and black around the edges, and it's obviously, been used a few times. But the actual cooking surface itself is very clean. There's no crud left on it, and it looks nice and clean. So to me, this is kind of an important difference between seasoned and just plain nasty. A lot of people will say, don't clean your grill grates, that's just seasoning, building up that residue on the grates and on the inside of the smoker, that seasoning adds flavor. People say that a lot. I'm not sure if that's true or if it's an old wives' tale, but I am a believer in seasoning, but not leaving a buildup of crud. And I've got over here some grill grates to show the difference of what I mean by that. This is a brand new grill grate that just came out of the box, has not been used yet. This is going on one of my other grills, but since it hasn't been used yet, it's a good opportunity to show what the aluminum grill grate looks like fresh out of the box. This is a grill grate that's been used many, many times over the last 2.5 years or so. And this is actually clean. This has been washed, scraped, scrubbed. This is ready to go back into use. And there's no buildup of grime and debris on it, no carbon buildup, nothing flammable. But you can still see it's got that black, dark color to it because it's been really well seasoned. So to me, don't mix up clean, versus brand new. We want it clean, but still seasoned. So you're never gonna get them to look like this after you've used them a few times, and you don't even want to. You want them to look like this, where they're seasoned, but there's not any buildup of crud left there that could get into your food or cause flare-ups and fires when you're doing high temperature cooking. That same concept about flare-ups and fires applies to the walls of the unit as well. Some people never ever clean the walls on the inside of the smoker until there's a buildup so thick you could scrape it off. I'm not a fan of that myself. I think that's a mistake, but some people do that. If you've got a grill that's been neglected for a long time and you're trying to kind of rehab it and there's stuff all over the walls, I would get a spackle knife you don't care about too much, and you can get nylon brushes and put them on a power drill. And this is a good way to rehab a grill that's been really neglected that has a buildup of crud. So if you run your finger over the walls and there's anything more than just the littlest bit of grit, if there's any real buildup on there, give it a scrape with a spackle knife or hit it with a nylon brush. And word to the wise, make sure the brush is spinning away from you, not towards you, so you don't make a mess all over your face and your clothes. Not that I ever did that or anything, but a guy I know made that mistake and had black stuff all over his shirt and face. So these are your tools for rehabbing a neglected grill. If you clean it frequently, you don't need these. So that's just something to keep in mind. So how frequently is frequently? It depends. If you're doing little quick cooks like a reverse seared steak and the thing's only running for an hour and a half, I might do 3 or 4 cooks before I do a full cleaning. If you do a big cook like an overnight brisket cook that we just did where this has been going for 12 hours or more, I clean everything after a cook like that. So whether you think of it in terms of number of cooks or number of hours, you be the judge, but it's a good idea to clean it more frequently. So I'll get these grates out of here, because we already talked about how I clean those in the kitchen, and then we'll go over how to clean the inside parts of the smoker. First things first, make good use of aluminum foil. I get these packs from Costco of this heavy duty foil, which conveniently enough is exactly 18 inches wide, which is the exact width of the diffuser plate on a Yoder 640. So this just happens to perfectly match my smoker, which is really nice. It makes a good sheet. There's also, commercially available ones for a particular smoker, like this sheet is designed to be a protective layer for that particular Traeger. So if you want to spend money on one, you can buy these kind of fancy pre-made ones. But for the most part, I think you can do the job cheaply and effectively with foil. The beauty of the foil is half of the mess is going to just be pulled away and not require any cleaning. So if we look in here more closely, you'll see that the drippings from the briskets have kind of charred onto this foil on their way down to the grease bucket down below. So we've got a bunch of crud on there on this foil, and all that is now not stuck to the metal plate, requiring any real scrubbing or cleaning. So we just take that foil out, and that took away, a third of our cleaning job right there. On this particular smoker, there's a trap door in the heat diffuser plate, which is a really nice feature because that allows you to do direct heat searing and so forth with that trap door right over the firebox. The other thing that's really beautiful about that is if you just want to do a quick and dirty clean, you just want to get ready for your next cook and get on with it, you don't have time for a deep cleaning, you can simply pull that trap door off, get in and vacuum out the firebox, and you're ready to go for your next cook. So I'm going to do that right quick. So if I were in a real rush and trying to get on with my next cook, that's it. That's the end of the cleaning. I would put the trap door back on, give the grates a scrape, and just go for it. And I know it's going to function properly because the firebox is clean. But when it's been used for 10, 12 hours or more like this one has, I'm going to keep going and finish the deep clean. So to do that, we want to get all the interior parts out. So I've already taken out one piece of the diffuser plate. Now I'm going to take out the whole plate itself, so we can get into the bottom of the cooker. And you'll notice on the bottom of this plate, you're gonna get a brown sooty buildup from where the fire's hitting it. And that's really easy to clean. It just wipes away, but it's nice to give that a spray and wipe it with a shop towel so it doesn't build up. So we'll do that momentarily. And then I also put a piece of foil down here in the bottom of the cooking chamber, and that does two things. Number one, if you're doing direct grilling over open flames with the diffuser removed, you're going to get grease drippings down there. So if you're searing steaks or cooking burgers or whatever over direct heat, that grease is going to drip right down there and makes a mess of the bottom. So the foil will catch that. If you're doing a low and slow cook like the brisket we just did, you're going to get a big buildup of ash in the bottom of the cooker. And having this foil there allows us to wrap up and remove most of the ash without even using the vacuum. So I'm going to reach in and get this foil out. And it's going to bring quite a lot of the ash with it. I'll just roll it up and coax it out from under these internal parts here. And there's still some ash around the perimeter, which we're going to get with the shop vac. But if you look in there now, you can see there's a perimeter of ash around the edge, but the bulk of the ash from a 12-hour cook is gone in one shot like that. What's nice about that is it puts less of a beating on your shop vac. The filters in these things will get clogged up from that ash. It's a very fine ash, and it really gunks up those filters. So if you've got a shop vac like this and you think it was working great, and then 2-3 months later it's not working great, you probably have clogged up the filter. So you got to take it apart and bang the crap out of that filter and get all the dust out of it. And I always keep a 2-pack of extra filters just in case I get one that's really gone. One more removable part is our burn grate. Burn grate's going to have some ash and debris on it that we can clean in a moment. So we've got our internal parts out, heat diffuser, trapdoor, and burn grate. And now we're ready to vacuum out the little bit of residual ash that's left. So that's pretty much it for the shop vac. I'll set that aside in case I find anything that needs a touch up later. And then I like to clean the internal parts and set those aside so they can start air drying, and then go into the cooking chamber itself and work on the walls. So to do that, I just grab a trash can, grab my non-toxic spray and shop towels, and just generally wipe them. They don't have to be super clean. They're about to get covered in ash again anyway, so you don't need to get carried away here. But I like to kind of de-gunk them just a little bit and just kind of get that stuff right into the trash. So this thing was a straight light brown color when we started, and just with a quickie, 10-second wipe, it basically looks like a piece of metal again, nice and clean. And if you want to do the top, you certainly can. This one's already clean because it was covered in foil. If you don't have that foil liner, this top will get really grungy because that stuff will burn onto it, and your diffuser plate will become really, really nasty. So I strongly recommend using foil to cover your metal surfaces underneath your cooking area. So that's done. We're going to set that trapdoor aside. And now I'm going to repeat the same process with the whole diffuser itself. So I'll just balance that on the trash can, get the spray going again. Sometimes it gets kind of bulky and cruddy and requires a couple of rounds of towels, but definitely not going for perfection here, just debulking the buildup of carbon and crud on it. And this obviously is not even a cooking surface. This is just preventing buildup inside the chamber of dust and stuff that flies around the food. So you can be kind of quick and dirty about this. Just wipe it off and be done with it. All right, that's good enough. And same story, if you want to wipe down the top, you can. This one's already fairly clean because it was covered in foil, but there's a little bit of leakage of smoke through the edges here and some brown around the little trapdoor area, so I'll give it a quick wipe. And that's about all that needs. Also, another thing about that foil that's really important is it prevents grease and drippings from getting into this seal where the trapdoor joins the rest of the cooking chamber. This area right here, there's a little ledge where the trapdoor sits on that lower square and balances there. If that ledge gets full of grease and crud and debris that cooks on there, you'll no longer be able to form a good seal. And when you put your trapdoor on there, it may not sit flush. It may have corners sitting up or not behaving well, which will allow more heat to escape than you want. It could create a hot spot on your grill. So you definitely want to keep those edges meticulously clean. I think the best way to do that is just to use that foil and not let it get dirty in the first place. But if it does get dirty, if something leaks through or whatever, go back to your spackle knife and just scrape those edges out. I do this every few cooks just to make sure there's no buildup in those corners. And now your trapdoor is going to sit nice and flush and prevent any heat leakage there that you don't want. So that's it for the diffuser plate. I'll set that aside. And now the burn grate. This thing builds up some chunky stuff sometimes, so I'll take the spackle knife over the trash can and just give it a scrape and just decrud any ash that's built up on it. Again, this is not a time to worry about being meticulous because this is not where the food goes, and it's going to be covered in ash on our next cook. So you don't have to get carried away with this, but debulking it's good so that those holes stay open to allow good heat through and they don't become full of crap. If you never clean this, these holes in the burn grate can fill up with chunks of crap that you don't want in there. So you want to give those a good scrape and make sure the holes aren't filling up. And that's pretty much it. You don't have to do more on this. Sometimes if it's real ashy, I'll just give it one quickie spray. But again, it doesn't really need to be clean because it's going to be an ashtray next time anyway. But I'm slightly neurotic, so I'll give it one wipe anyway. Just get that ash off of there. And that's as clean as that thing really needs to be. If you're noticing a grimy buildup, you can spend a little more quality time with the spackle knife once in a while just to keep that clean. But that looks pretty good for now. Another thing, and they actually recommend this in the manual for the 640, is to jump on these and bend them a little bit. They warp with the heat, so they recommend that you step on it a little bit after each cook so that it doesn't contract up. They make a new one now that you can order that has little braces so it won't bend, but I don't have it. So believe it or not, that jump on the burn grate move is actually in the manual. And the point of that is you want it to fit in down into the firebox with no gap between the burn grate and the wall of the cooking chamber. If you get a gap in there, you can get heat buildup that can light the pellets on fire in the dispenser, and the fire can go into the auger and up into the hopper, and you can have a fire. So you want to check that your burn grate fits flush against the sidewall, and you should have no more than 1/8 of an inch of room there. I prefer none at all, so I bend it until it's nice and flush like this. If you overdo it, it can be a little hard to get it in, but that's just kind of a trial and error type of situation. So now we're done with all the inner parts. Now all we have to do is wipe down the walls of the cooking chamber to the desired degree. So this is where opinions vary. Some people think having really greasy walls is a good thing and maybe just contributes to flavor. I could sort of believe that because the steel gets pretty hot when you're cooking. If the steel's a couple hundred degrees, then the stuff that's built up on the walls could certainly kind of vaporize and contribute to the flavor. So I don't know if that's an old wives' tale or if it's real. But what I do know is this: if you get a big buildup when you're doing a high temperature cook, like searing steaks or cooking pizzas or anything where you would have it on maximum heat, you're gonna have a high risk of a fire. So I like to keep the walls pretty clean. I don't like any buildup, anything gritty that I could feel with my fingers, I don't like. So this is just spray and shop towels and a little bit of elbow grease. And how much is too much, you know, you be the judge. I spray it down and give it a wipe. And when you first do it, you'll notice the spray itself is turning brown as it's dripping down because it's picking up a lot of stuff. So just do one round of wipe on all surfaces. Make sure to clean any thermometers. I've got 2 thermometers in the dome here, so I'm going to wipe those down. And then there's another one on the sidewall. We're going to wipe that down as well. And we'll just kind of give that a good wipe. I usually do maybe 2 rounds if it's really greasy. This one was actually pretty clean already, not that bad. And now I'll just hit the inside walls and do the same process. I'll just spray them down and let them soak a little bit, and then I'll work my way around with some towels and just do a quickie wipe out. And then the bottom of the chute down there, of course, leads to the grease trap, and that's just a clean as needed. If it's full, empty it. No magic to that at all. But I'll get all the sides of the internal pieces here and then run around and wipe them out. And here's the thermocouple over here, so we want to get that pretty clean. Make sure that's wiped, not getting any buildup on it. In the Yoder, it's a kind of robust little rod there. It's like, I don't know, 1.25 inches long. And the Traeger, it's literally just a little 2-wire coupling with a little rubber nubbin on the end. It's a minuscule little thing. So whatever type of cooker you have, figure out where that thermocouple is and clean it as gently as possible to get it degunked, and that's about it. All right, so we finished the wipe down of the grill. We're ready to put it back together now that it's kind of de-ashed and cleaned up a little bit. I did put a fresh layer of foil in the bottom around the firebox, which will act as a nice grease catcher if I'm cooking steaks over the open heat, and also a nice ash catcher if we do a long cook like a brisket. So that'll just help with cleanup on the bottom. And now, otherwise we're ready to put it back together. So we'll put those previously cleaned pieces back in. Got our burn grate. Make sure the igniter is sticking through properly, and we've got a good seal. That looks pretty good. And then sometimes I'll preset the damper to where I think I want it, which is usually about 6 inches in. So I'll just put that overlapping the foil and around 6 inches in, and I can always adjust that later. Now we'll get the heat diffuser plate in where it belongs. And we'll put the trap door in. And that's it as far as the internal parts other than grates. And the next thing I like to do is line this with foil so we don't get drippings from the food all scorched onto the diffuser plate. Before we do that, one word about cleaning and kind of how you know you're done. If you're scrubbing away on those walls and the towels are coming off black, you're not done yet. If the towels are coming off light brown, you're done. There's no point. They'll keep coming off that color for the rest of time if you keep going. So when they're light brown, you're done. When they're black, keep going. And now we're ready to put some foil on this. So I'll just eyeball it and try to get a sheet about the length of the diffuser plate. It's maybe just shorted a little bit. Take my gloves off for a second. All right. So we don't want to overlap the edges where the heat comes around the plate. So we don't put it in too long on the left, and we don't want it to overhang the front or the back. Conveniently enough, this Costco heavy duty foil is 18 inches and this diffuser plate is 18 inches. So this is kind of a nice cheap way. If you happen to have this Yoder, you don't need to buy anything special. You can just do it with foil. And I wrap the excess over the end on the right here, and the grease will drip right down into the chute towards the grease bucket. And then just kind of flatten the edges like so. And then the last thing I like to do, and this is kind of only relevant if you're going to be doing some searing, is find the edges of this trap door by kind of pushing on the foil like this, and you can see where they are. And then you can sneak in there with a box cutter or a knife of some kind, and you can cut the trap door into your aluminum foil using your plate as a template. And then you can keep your stuff covered while you're smoking and there's drippings all around. And then you can take this off when you're ready to take the diffuser off for searing. So you wouldn't want to do this with a hot grill because number one, you'd be burning your hands. And number two, you'd be choking on smoke and getting smoke in your eyes. So you just kind of do this ahead of time. And then I'll just kind of take it out, take a look at my diffuser plate. Sometimes I'll kind of flip it around the other way. Just make sure everything is sealing correctly. Doesn't have any foil stuck in it or anything. And then I'll just lay that down on there like so. And now I'm not going to get any drippings on that piece for the most part, other than around the edges a little bit. And that's pretty much it for the inside. So now from this point, we can get it ready for our next cook. So the grates we just used for brisket need a cleaning, but I think my next cook's just going to be cooking a steak some night this week probably. So I'm going to put in my half depth shelf up top, which is good for smoking a couple of steaks. And then on the bottom, I'm going to put my grill grates that are cleaned already. And this would be my setup for doing a steak. So we'll take it out of brisket mode and put it into steak mode, sort of. Assemble this thing. Being a little stubborn. There it goes. So what I'll do if I'm smoking a steak is just do the smoking portion on the half depth shelf and push that out of my way. Take the steak off once it's at 120 or so to rest it while I'm getting ready for searing. I'll just move these grates out of the way, discard this piece of foil, open up the trap door, slide the grates back over, and then you're ready to sear. When you're actually cooking, of course, I would do that with gloves on because this will all be hot. And you can either go put the hot plate anywhere concrete where you won't burn or melt something, or you can just lay it over here on the side where you're not using that area. Put the hot metal on the hot metal and just leave it be till you're done. So this is a good setup for doing a reverse sear. So I'll leave it like this for my next cook, and then we'll get those grates clean, and that's that. And then as far as cleaning the outside, do what you will. You can be as worried or not worried about that as you like. I usually just use that same Traeger spray and give it a quick wipe. Nothing much to it. And the only other things worth mentioning are the grease bucket and the stack. The grease bucket I don't really do anything with unless it's full. So I'll just kind of give it a check. And it's pretty full, so that one needs to go. So I'll just take that out, and that's what happens when you do 2 briskets. You get a nice nasty bucket full of grease. So if I were just cooking a steak, I wouldn't even bother to check it. But after doing 35 pounds of brisket, it definitely needs a look. So that's probably got like a quart of grease in it right now. So I'll have to get that taken care of. And then the last thing is the stack. You can take this off. And what I'll do is just take it into the kitchen sink and just scrub it out with a wire brush, run a bunch of hot soapy water through it. And then I kind of stuff it with paper towels to dry it out, or blow some air through it, make sure it's nice and dry. I do that maybe 1 to 2 times a year. I certainly don't do it every time. This one's got a little bit of gunk in it, but not worth doing today. So I just give it a check, and then I'll save that part for a rainy day. And that is pretty much it. So I think in some people's view that might seem excessive, but I like a clean grill. So that's what I do, and works nicely for me. Thanks for watching, and see you soon for more Sawbones barbecue videos.